Hello everybody, it's time for another comic book review video! Sorry. And this one is going to be a book, Singularity 7 by Ben Templesmith, published by IDW. This book... Okay. So many things I gotta talk about. But before I get into anything too much, this trade is the entire story. It is issues 1 through 4. Completely done by Ben Templesmith. He did the art, story, everything. Sweet. There's also a short story issue in the back, which, now that I'm remembering it, it's awful. I think it appeared, let me see, it appeared in IDW's Tales of Terror, and I think it came before the series, I'm not sure. I kind of hope so, because I think it's really bad. By really bad, I mean the writing, unfortunately. Ben Templesmith, I think, is a really great illustrator, at times. There's some panels occasionally he'll run into, or some story bits where I don't think he really cares too much, or probably doesn't have the time. He kind of rushes through it, doesn't look that great. But if you know anything about his art, he's still he's very clearly himself in his work, and it's very, very interesting to look at. His style is really kind of grungy. You've got to look it up if you don't already know it. It's very him, which is something that is very admirable in the comic book world. His work is most clearly seen in, let me see, he did 30 Days a Night with Steve Niles. He also did a bunch of other comics with Steve. Let me see. I know there's a ton more, but they're not really coming to me at the moment. He did a Doctor Who issue at one point. Dang it, the names aren't clicking at the moment. I know there's more, but the title isn't hitting me. Shoot, what is it called? Whatever, anyway. Singularity 7. So, the synopsis on the back of this comic actually tells you the entire story, and that's all you really need to know. I didn't realize it gave that much away, which unfortunately that's not much to give away at all. It is 1, 2, 3 sentences. Yep, 3 sentences. And I guess I'll read them to you now. With the Earth laid waste by an assault from microscopic nanites, which are, like they say, microscopic little robot things that can, they like grab and like rebuild matter, and they, I believe they all have like one united mind, but they needed a host, and they get a human host. I'm already adding to the back, as you see. Because of the assault by these nanites, humanity hides in underground cities, but the cities are being destroyed by the Goziodo machines being engineered to convert the remains of humanity to the will of the nanites, so kind of like I just said. It's up to 7 men and women, seemingly immune to the nanotechnology, to fight back before there's nothing left to fight for. So the nanites have this human they take, and he basically becomes this godlike entity who can control all of them at once, and he's completely insane at that point. And from there, like it says, people live underground, and eventually these 7 people who seem to be immune to the technology are going to go fight back. Well, sounds really interesting, really cool. Why isn't it? Why isn't it? The story, from right there, has a ton of potential. The first issue is really cool, really interesting, and, well, there's some crucial problems in it, mainly dialogue. Templesmith didn't do that great in terms of his dialogue, which is funny, because I love his Wormwood. Duh, he did Wormwood! There we go. I reviewed that book. I'm an idiot. Anyway, so like I said, the story sounds really interesting. Why is it not done very well? I think that is mainly because the writing is a little weak. And by a little, I mean a lot. Which is, it kind of hurts me to say that because Templesmith's a really cool guy. I've gotten to talk to him, like, I don't know how many times now, and I really love his Wormwood. I think he's a great illustrator, and this just fell really short. And I think it's because that first issue, which mainly is good because it is giving you all that backstory of the setting up the characters, which, I mean, there's some dialogue issues where I'm like, you know, kind of cringeworthy, like, oh, it's so corny, or that's so dumb, or he wouldn't say that, or things like that. That maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm thinking too much into it, which it's not that much I'm thinking into it if I look at a character and I'm like, who goes, old man, why are you filling their heads with this garbage, or whatever. That's a very notable line for me in the first issue. Let me see. Being called, 1 second. I'm sorry, again. So anyway, the story is just not quite written as well as it could have been, and I think a lot of that is the dialogue and understanding the characters. The content of the setting is really cool, and I think Templesmith's mind, maybe he just develops the settings really well, and he excels at that, and then illustrating them, he does a very good job at that. And I think he started to lose a bit of passion, just from what I'm gathering from reading it, in the later issues, especially the fourth one. Because all of a sudden the characters are... I really didn't care about anybody in this book. And you try and figure out, like, am I supposed to be paying more attention to you? Are you the main protagonist? Or what's even going on? And especially in the end, just a lot of weird things happen to try and shock me. And I'm just like, well, that person's dead, whatever. Oh, that person's dead. How many are left? How many people didn't die yet? And then if you actually do keep count, I feel like there was a mistake at the end. I don't know. I don't even understand. It's so... Not understand as in it was too deep or complex. It was, it ended up seeming that the cool setting idea was just an excuse to try and illustrate the story. And, I mean that because I feel like the actual content of the writing was just extremely underdeveloped, and that was really disappointing to me because this sounded very interesting, and it was kind of a bummer. I'm also really bummed because I got this as a gift, and I was very excited to read it, and unfortunately it fell very short. So there's really nothing else I can say in terms of the content of the story. Templesmith's art progressively, very slowly, gets a little less and less involved, very slightly less well done, looks a little more hastily done, but only certain panels. And sometimes it's a little confusing what's actually happening. You really don't care about any of the characters. They all seem like they were designed by, this is going to sound really mean, by a high schooler. And I mean that in a way because they'll draw something that I think is really cool, and then they'll describe that character with like 3 very, very clear attributes, and then never go outside of those bounds, and not try and explore deeper into that character. So I could draw, there's a particular character I'm thinking of who has this mask that looks like it's got teeth all over it, which is a really cool design. The character has a really cool design. But there's really not much below that peripheral surface there. There's, why did I say peripheral? It's not very deep at all. And it doesn't need to be, but I would at least want it to be a little deeper than, oh, I'm the tough guy, you know? Oh, I'm the scared one. Stuff like that, where you just add very obvious attributes to people, and it just makes for a, not a very enjoyable read. I don't look for certain things like that when I'm going for a story that's just supposed to be like some fun sci-fi thing. I don't want to put everything up on the same standards, but it's very prominent in this that it is clearly what the problem is and why this is not a very great comic. So if you're interested in reading this because you really like Templesmith's other work, and you get it for a really good deal, hey, sure, you can go ahead and read it, but I mean, unfortunately, it's probably not worth it. It's a $20 trade. Oh my gosh. Yeah, mine seems to be used, and I'm going to make the assumption mine was at least purchased for 10. So, $20? No. Even 10, I'm thinking, for me, because I would make a video out of it, sure, because I would learn something out of it, me, personally, as in making my other comics. If I read something that I don't like, I figure out, alright, why did I not like this, and then it can help me make my stuff better. And, if I read something, like, if I was reading it just to enjoy it, I would not have enjoyed this book at all. I would have taken it right back, and that would have been the end of that. So, really disappointing. Not much more I can say about Singularity 7. Yeah. It's just a weak book. I think it's the best term for it, other than the illustrations, which, if you know Templesmith stuff, can really get great, but the content of how the story is delivered is weak. I'm sorry, Ben. Your other stuff is great. Oh, but this one is not. I'm sorry. So, unfortunately, I would say if you have the option, I would pass this one up unless you can borrow it from someone else and read it. Then sure, go ahead, but it's not really worth owning. So, I'm going to see you guys at the next comic book review. Let me know down in the comments if you have any contrary stuff to say about Singularity 7. I will see you guys in the next review video.